Breaking tonight, after 3 months of offering hints, Donald Trump is sharing new details on his foreign policy plans for taking on the world's worst terror group and dealing with the mess in the Middle East. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. We have a big night of 2016 coverage with Mark Thiessen, Brit Hume, and Dr. Ben Carson with big news on his campaign. But we begin with the current Republican frontrunner. For months, Donald Trump has been insisting that he has a, quote, surgical plan that would completely annihilate the Islamic State terror army, one of the most challenging threats to global security. But he said he did not want to share it because he did not want the enemy to know what it was. Now, in a series of interviews over the last 72 hours, Trump has outlined an argument for pulling back on America's efforts to fight ISIS in Syria and instead letting Russia handle that battle. And in an interview on Fox News just moments ago, he took things one step further. Here is some of how the Trump plan has unfolded.
I do know what to do, and I would know how to bring ISIS to the table or beyond that, defeat ISIS very quickly. And I'm not going to tell you what it is tonight. If I win, I don't want the enemy to know what I'm doing. All I can tell you is that it is a foolproof way of winning.
So simple. It's like the paperclip. You know, somebody came up with the idea of the paperclip and made a lot of money.
They sure
and
did.
everybody's saying, boy, why didn't I think of that? That was so simple. This is so simple, so surgical. It would be an unbelievable thing.
We go in to fight ISIS. Why aren't we letting ISIS go and fight Assad, and then we pick up the remnants? Why are we doing this?
So we lay off ISIS for now.
Excuse
in Syria.
me,
Lay off in Syria, let them destroy Assad, and then we go in behind that.
That's what I would say.
Okay.
Yes, if you look at Syria, Russia wants to get rid of ISIS. We want to get rid of ISIS. Maybe let Russia do it. Let them get rid of ISIS. What the hell do we care?
Putin is now taking over what we started, and he's going into Syria, and he frankly wants to fight ISIS, and I think that's a wonderful thing.
Once Putin gets in and fights ISIS on behalf of Assad, Putin runs Syria. He owns it. He'll never get out. Never.
All right, okay, fine. I mean, you know, we can be in Syria. Do you want to run Syria? Do you want to own Syria?
No.
Mark Thiessen is a Fox News contributor and former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush. Mark, good to see you. So that's the plan. And there is a lot of popular sentiment in this country that supports Donald Trump, because more and more the American people look at this mess in the Middle East and they think, why should we have our American soldiers get killed over there? If the Russians want to put people in, if they want to get in this battle with ISIS and defeat them over there, go for it.
His plan is just like a paperclip if you unfolded the paperclip and used it to stab yourself in the eye. I mean, this is the most incompetent statement that a candidate has said on foreign policy in a very long time.
Why?
It should be disqualifying as commander-in-chief.
Why?
For number one, ISIS is the enemy, Syria is the enemy, Russia is the enemy. Okay? The Russians are in Syria because Iran invited them in. As Carly Fiorina pointed out in the debate, it happened after General Soleimani, who's the commander of the Quds Force, not the Kurds Force, the Quds Force,
in Iran,
met with Putin in Moscow, and then Russia came in. They are there to extend Iranian hegemony.
Let's just make it clear, because there's so many countries and so many bad things. The bad guy Soleimani from Iran goes and meets with Putin. Next thing you know, so Iran and Putin having a meeting. And the next thing you know, Putin's in Syria and wants to fight this battle. Go.
And he's doing it there to serve the Iranian interest, because Assad is Iran's best ally in the region.
Yeah, but it's kind of like we dislike everyone.
Iran.
So his point is, let all the ones we dislike hate each other and fight each other, and we'll just sit over here.
Yeah. And second of all, that's not the Republican sentiment. 73% of Republicans say they want to send ground troops to defeat ISIS in Syria and Iraq. So the Republican electorate is very hawkish, and it's out of tune with what Trump is saying. But second of all, what he's saying is he's channeling Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. He said in that quote that you just showed a second ago, well, why do we want to own Syria? He said, I want to build bridges and build our country. That's Barack Obama's line.
We have that. We have that. There is a comparison. There is a similarity between what Obama once said about not getting involved there and what Donald Trump said. Here it is. Watch.
We can be in Syria. Do you want to run Syria? Do you want to own Syria? I want to rebuild our country, Bill. I want to rebuild our bridges.
American workers built this country. And now we need American workers to rebuild this country. It is time we take some of the money that we spend on wars use half of it to pay down our debt, and then use the rest of it to do some nation building right here at home.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, memo to Donald Trump. That is the foreign policy that Republicans are running against. And it's not just Barack Obama. He said in that interview with Bill, and this is the worst part of it all, he said in that interview with Bill that we can work with Assad, that I've looked at Assad, and I'm a good judge of people, and he's a guy who we can work with. No, he's not. First of all, that's Hillary Clinton's line.
He didn't say it quite that strongly. He didn't say it quite that strongly.
I've been looking at the different players, and I've been watching Assad, and I've been pretty good at this stuff over the years because deals are people, and I'm looking at Assad and thinking he's better than the kind of people we're supposed to be backing.
Well, that's different than he's the kind of guy we can work with. He's better than ISIS. I mean, it's
he's
like
suggesting
in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I realize
he's better than the Free Syrian Army. He's better than the people that we're trying to support against him. But the point is, Hillary Clinton's the one who said that Assad is a reformer, and she's not saying that anymore because you know what's happened? She said that in 2011. Since then, he's massacred almost 300,000 people. He's the worst mass murderer of the 21st century.
He's a truly terrible, evil man. But last question. Why is it a problem if Russia expands its influence in Syria at the expense of the United States' influence in the Middle East?
Because they're there to help Iran. Russia and Iran and Syria have an axis that they are trying to expand influence. They just reached an agreement to start helping in the fight against ISIS, to help in Iraq. Iran is trying to overthrow the government in Yemen are supposed to be our ally against Al Qaeda. Iran is a country that wants to destroy Israel and get nuclear weapons and calls America and chants death to America. Anybody who goes in there to strengthen their influence at the expense of ours is not helping the United States of America. And for Donald Trump to not recognize these facts, Bill called him on it. He said, this guy's a mass murderer. He said, we don't know that. Yes, we do. This is not in dispute. Assad is a mass murderer. Putin is trying to help him, and he's trying to help Iran. This is not hard stuff.
Mark, always good to get your perspective. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Megyn.
Well, the other big story in the 2016 field involves a growing series of media attacks on some recent statements by a couple of different Republican candidates. The Daily Beast's Dean Obeidallah today called this, quote, the GOP's 2016 Festival of Hate, suggesting it is, quote, already the most racist presidential campaign ever. Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume joins me now. It's a festival.
That statement is so out there that it borders on hysterical. I mean, is he saying this Republican campaign is more racist than the one in which, for example, George Wallace ran? I mean, is he
how
really?
About 1860 when they were arguing over slavery?
Exactly. I mean, it's just, it's preposterous. But Megyn, what this reflects is a couple of things. One is that one of the great liberal achievements of our contemporary history was the battle for equal rights reflected in the civil rights movement. And what it accomplished, among other things, was to make racism absolutely verboten in the United States. The consensus against racism in America is overwhelming. It is bipartisan and it is utter. And so, if you can tag someone with the label of racism, the label of racist, you can do real damage. And too many unscrupulous actors in this drama have used that consensus as a kind of a cudgel to damage people they disagree with for a range of other reasons. This is, in my view, an example of that.
What they're saying is it's racism in particular against Muslims, in the case now of Dr. Carson and Donald Trump. This is according to the piece we referenced.
Well, the Muslim faith isn't a race.
Well, they're saying that the quote that was on CNN the other day was Muslim is the new black.
Oh, please. I mean, one hardly knows what to say about this sort of thing. I mean, it is, I am afraid, Megyn, a foretaste of what it is going to be like when the nominees are finally chosen and we have a Democrat and a Republican running for the presidency, how bad this is going to get. We're looking at the rough stuff that's happening in the rough and tumble of the Republican primary, and Donald Trump with his insults and the struggle that Hillary Clinton is having and all the rest of it, and that looks like rough and tumble politics. But my fear is, based on this sort of thing, is that you ain't seen nothing yet.
Why? Why is it so much worse, or it seems so much worse now than it used to be?
Well, I think for one thing, the country is as divided and polarized as I think it's been at any time since I've been covering politics over the last 45 or 50 years. And that contributes to this. And the feeling in each camp is that if the other party were to win the presidency, that America as we know it or want it to be will be gone forever. Mm-hmm. And so you get this tooth and nail sort of attitude about everything. And, of course, it's all, and the situation in Congress reflects it. And, you know, this is what we're looking at. And I think that it's going to get worse.
Is there any, but do you think that, is there any merit to the notion that Ben Carson, with his comments, or Donald Trump with that exchange he had with that man in not challenging him, it wasn't Trump that said anything, it was the man, did somehow damage the Republican brand?
Well, yeah, that's possible, but that's a different matter. I mean, what we're talking about, there's no huge, overwhelming consensus in America that you can't say anything critical of Muslims. But you say something critical of African Americans, you better be extremely careful what you say. I mean, you have to make sure that it is a policy disagreement with someone, and it is not in any sense a criticism of the race, not in any sense, under any circumstances. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing in most respects. But what you see here is people are trying to drag Muslims, who are people we should certainly tolerate and care about, but among whom is a number that we need to be fighting and resisting. They're trying to drag them into the same category as blacks and other races. Mm-hmm. But the Muslim faith is not a race, as I said. And so some of the comments that we're talking about here were not only not racist, they weren't even racial.
It's an interesting point. Good place to pick it up with our next guest. Britt, great to see you.
Yeah, thanks, Megan.
And wait until you see who that is. We have breaking news tonight on one of the groups attacking Republicans, and in particular, attacking Dr. Carson. Up next, see what we turned up on the Muslim American group CARE and whether they could now be in big trouble for their attack on the good doctor. Plus, he's here. Dr. Ben Carson is here with some big news on his campaign. Also, breaking news tonight out of Baltimore, where a judge has now set the trial dates for the 6 officers charged in the death of Freddie Gray. And wait until you hear what he's done with respect to those trials. And then, new questions. If an anti-gun advocate crossed a line with a video that goes after Dana Lash, who you know very well, in the worst way. We'll show you the message, and Dana is here to respond.